Welcome to Charles Travels, the podcast where we explore the most incredible destinations and stories from around the world. I'm your host, Charles, and I'm thrilled to have you joining me on this journey. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into a fascinating tale that combines travel, culture, and environmentalism. As we venture into the heart of the Amazon rainforest, we find ourselves in the midst of a compelling narrative that involves indigenous communities, corporate responsibility, and the devastating impact of deforestation. Our story begins with the Uruuau indigenous territory in Rondônia, Brazil, where the Jupau, Amondawa, and Orowen peoples have lived for centuries. However, their ancestral lands are under threat from cattle ranching and logging, which has resulted in the clearance of over 20,000 hectares of protected land. The consequences of this destruction are far-reaching, with the loss of biodiversity, soil erosion, and the displacement of indigenous communities. But what's even more alarming is that some of these cattle are being sold to regional meatpacking plants operated by JBS, a supplier to the French retail giant Casino Group. As we delve deeper into this complex issue, we discover that the Casino Group has been linked to deforestation in the Amazon, with reports suggesting that their supply chain is contributing to the destruction of the rainforest. The indigenous communities who have traditionally relied on the forest for their livelihood are now fighting back against the corporations responsible for this devastation. We'll be exploring the intricacies of this case, including the lawsuit filed by the Uruuau communities against the Casino Group, and the potential implications for corporate responsibility and environmental protection. From the Amazon rainforest to the courts of Paris, this is a story that will take us on a journey across continents and into the heart of the struggle to preserve our planet's most precious resources. So, buckle up and join me on this thought-provoking adventure as we navigate the complex web of relationships between indigenous communities, corporations, and the environment. We'll be right back with more fascinating travel adventures on Charles Travels. Welcome back to Charles Travels, where we're exploring the hidden gems and unexpected delights that make life so rich and rewarding. As we take a break from our journey through the complex web of relationships between indigenous communities, corporations, and the environment, I'd like to shift gears and take you on a different kind of adventure, one that's all about the joy of discovery and the pleasures of the open road. Imagine yourself driving through the picturesque Gippsland region in Victoria, Australia, with the wind in your hair and the sun on your face. The rolling hills, verdant forests, and sparkling lakes create a breathtaking backdrop for a road trip like no other. And when you need a pit stop to refuel and recharge, there's one tiny cafe that stands out from the rest: Snaffle in Can River. This unassuming gem is nestled in the heart of town, where the locals gather to share stories and enjoy a warm welcome. As you step inside, you're enveloped by the enticing aromas of freshly baked goods, expertly brewed coffee, and sizzling jaffles that will make your taste buds do the happy dance. Yes, you heard that right, jaffles. Those humble, old-school sandwiches that are making a comeback in a big way. At Snaffle, the menu is all about loaded jaffles, with creative combinations like egg, bacon, cheese, native pepperberry chutney, and caramelized onion, or a smoky baked bean and cheese mix. And don't worry, vegans, you're catered for too, with plenty of plant-based options to satisfy your cravings. But it's not just about the food. It's about the experience. The cafe itself is a treasure trove of local delights, with shelves stocked with homemade jams, honey, preserves, and flowers, all available to purchase and take home as a memento of your visit. As you sit down to enjoy your jaffle and a cuppa, take a moment to appreciate the simple pleasures in life. The warmth of the sun streaming through the window, the sound of laughter and conversation from the locals, and the knowledge that you're supporting small-town businesses that are the heartbeat of rural America. It's all part of the charm. So if you ever find yourself road-tripping through Gippsland, be sure to stop by Snaffle in Can River. It's a tiny cafe with a big heart, serving up delicious food, warm hospitality, and a healthy dose of small-town charm. And who knows, you might just discover your new favorite pit stop. Stay tuned for our final story of the day, right here on Charles Travels. Welcome back to Charles Travels, dear listeners. As we conclude our journey together today, I wanted to take a moment to reflect on the complexities of human relationships and the importance of emotional intelligence. You know, as I travel across this beautiful country, meeting people from all walks of life, I'm constantly reminded that relationships are the fabric that weaves our lives together. Now, I recently came across an article that caught my attention, and I'd like to share it with you. It's about an Australian podcaster named Chris Griffin, who has sparked a heated debate about gender roles and emotional labor in relationships. According to Griffin, men need to come home to what he calls feminine energy, a calm, harmonious, and peaceful atmosphere that allows them to wind down after a long day of work. But here's the thing. This idea is rooted in some pretty outdated and problematic notions about gender. Griffin believes that women are naturally more inclined to be nurturing and caring, while men are driven leaders and providers. And he thinks that men shouldn't have to worry about emotional labor, because it's not part of their biological makeup. Now, I'm no expert, but as someone who's had the privilege of meeting people from all over the world, I can tell you that this kind of thinking is not only limiting but also damaging. It perpetuates a myth that men and women are fundamentally different in ways that are just not supported by science. As Professor Luke Smiley, an expert in personality psychology, points out, there's very little basis for arguing that personality traits are inherently gendered. In fact, most gender differences are relatively small, and men and women overlap considerably when it comes to characteristics like ambition or emotional intelligence. So, what's the harm in Griffin's thesis? Well, by conflating financial care with emotional care, he's not only screwing over women, but also leaving men unequipped to emotionally support themselves or their partners. And that's a recipe for disaster, especially when you consider that mental health issues like anxiety and depression affect so many people, regardless of gender. As I travel through this beautiful country, I'm constantly reminded that relationships are about mutual respect, trust, and emotional intelligence. They're not about perpetuating outdated stereotypes or limiting each other's potential. So, let's all take a deep breath and remember that we're in this together, as equals, with our own unique strengths and weaknesses. That's all for today's Charles Travels. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, keep on traveling.